Imagine if you went on a fishing expedition and you flown in, had a great time, and then as you get picked up by your pilot, he takes off and he flies into the air, and then before you know it, something happens to him and he just like leans over and he cannot fly the plane. Just imagine there for a moment, just that panic and that reality that you now are having to take this plane, and if you're going to survive, you're going to have to land this plane. That very scenario took place in May of 2022, where a man by the name of Darren Harrison, 39 years old, just come back from a fishing expedition, and he calls the flight control and he says, "I have an issue." And if you listen to it, it's like this calm. He sounds like a pilot. He's like, "We have an issue." He's like, "I've got a serious situation here. My pilot has gone incoherent." Like that, imagine that. Now, some of you is like, "Yeah, let's take it," right? Maybe some of you would be like, "Oh my gosh, what would you do?" Me? Death. I would just be like, we're dead, you know? Or I might say, "I got this," and crash it anyway, right? But the idea is, and this idea like of trying to navigate this plane down. And so this guy, this 20-year vet, Robert Morgan, begins to navigate this young man down. He really began to navigate him down to land this plane safely. And to really everybody's surprise and thrill, he survived. And so as we think about practicing the way, we've talked about this as a team, as we did our workshop a few weeks ago, and then we preached about being an apprentice of Jesus. What happens a lot of times in our faith journey is we say yes to Jesus and we take off. And then as we're in the air, we're kind of like, "Oh no, now what do I do now?" And you have people give you guideposts or directions or how to help you. And really what today is really going to be for me is I'm going to try to be Robert Morgan, the air traffic control guy, and give you some things, some tools, some step-by-step, some things that might help you in your journey. See, whose life was at risk in this? Like, whose life was going to be affected if he didn't land that plane? It was going to be Darren's, right? Like, it was going to be him and that pilot. Like, this was his life. He was having to make decisions to try to land this plane so that he might live. Now, Darren's on the ground. He's given direction, but he was making decisions for his own life. So there was an attentiveness, a seriousness, right? Like, every step would have been followed. Like, he was very attuned to what that air traffic controller had for him. And that's what I think of when I think of practicing a way. We've took this book. This is a great book. I'm not really covering a lot of this, but this is a great book that we've walked through. And the heart of this book, and really what we've talked about a lot, is about being an apprentice of Jesus, and that idea of being with Jesus, spending time with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and then simply doing what Jesus did. And if we do these things, we too will land where Jesus promised, as we read earlier in the scripture, was that your joy may be full. Now, I may not want a lot of things, but I really want to have fullness of joy in this life. Like, I want to know what it means to be truly joyful in every situation. In the good times that I would trust God and just give God the glory for his goodness. And then in the difficult times or the challenging times that I would be willing to know how to navigate the instruments before me. And even though I may not feel this overzealous joy, but I would have comfort knowing that someone is guiding my life, that I might land my plane safely. And so as we walk through this today, as we kind of tackle this today together, I really want to help you navigate your faith journey. So imagine me as your air traffic controller. You're in your plane and you're like, "Hey, Pastor, how do I navigate this thing?" So I'm going to try to give you a few things. Now, in the rule of life, the idea of that, the word rule really comes from the idea of a trellis in Greek. And so this idea of having some parameters, some instruments or tools in your life that help you, some disciplines, another way to say it, holy habits would be another way to say it, is to have some things that would help you, that if you do those constantly, that there will be some fruit from that. And as we read earlier, that there's some pruning, some things you probably have to take out of your life, and those things that you might want to add to your life that you might land your plane safely, right? And so just a few things that come to mind on that. And so this idea I actually had a visual that would help you of an iceberg that we use around here a lot, and it's really there's your public life, or your outward above the ocean, right? Is just an iceberg. It's like, and so we have some things that we say that if you do these constantly, if you manage your time, if you manage your calendar, if you reach out to people, can make connection and communicate and really deal with conflict in your life, like in a consistent manner, that you will deal, like you can find success in that. Like there's a system. And so a couple things as you're in that, in your journey, whatever your journey is, your faith journey, the first thing that you want to do is you want to begin to evaluate where you are spending your time, right? Like you're going to evaluate where your energy is being used. Where are the things in your life, especially if on the end of the week you're like, oh, thank God it's Friday. Whew. Thank God, like I'm tired, I'm done, I don't want anything. If you're being zapped out and not living in fullness of life, on mission with Christ, like I think there's some things to try to, where's my time going? Where are some things, where am I using my energy? And is it for God's glory, and is it really moving my mission and vision forward? Like, is it helping me? Am I accomplishing the things that God's placed in my life? And so again, this is really just idea. So this idea of a rule of life is really like a trellis. It's so that you can have some disciplines or some really a rule or a pattern or some boundaries. Now look, we all have some rules, right? If you borrow the car, you bring it back full tank, right? Like you bring it back full tank. If you want to you don't double dip chips. Like that's a rule, right? Like those are things. If you want to be invited to a Super Bowl party again, you probably wouldn't lick it and then put it back, right? And so there's some rules that we have that guide us, that help us, and that's really what we're thinking of. So how do we add some things? And so in his book, he mentions like 9 different things, and you can read the book, and we're not going to cover all those, but one thing that we do see, a couple things. We see this rule of life that Jesus gives this idea of this trellis, which is the vine to grow on. So let me read this in verse 5. It says of John 15, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So if we're to really apprentice to Jesus and we try to do it outside of Jesus, like we're not going to fulfill the vision and mission of our lives. It's impossible. He says, without me, you can do nothing. I mean, that means do nothing, right? You can't, it's not going to happen. He says, if anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. So the heart of a disciple, of a follower of Christ, just like the heart of that guy that was flying that plane was to land the plane, the heart for us is to bear much fruit. That's where our desire is, to have something to show for our life. As I get older, the more I realize that what really matters, like what is my life show for? Do I have fruit? Do I have something that's lasting, that's actually eternal, that really will matter when my days are end? And so really that desire. And so as we get a guide or we understand, we see a couple things too as it goes on, and that we see Jesus' example really gives us a clarity of where to do what he does, right? It gives us, helps us in this idea. So if you wanted to land a plane, so one thing the guy did, the air traffic controller who was not, really didn't know the plane that the guy was flying very well, so he printed a visual of that plane so he could see what the pilot was seeing. So if we want to understand how to live like Jesus did, we have a visual of that in the Gospels. And so there's one passage in Mark 1, verse 35, it says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. And so we see there's a time, a place, and a plan, right? There's a time and a place. When? It was early in the morning. And so as we begin to think about what do we need to add to our life, or what do we do? We need to begin to think through our calendar. What are we doing with our time? Where's a good time that you have energy where you could listen to the Lord? And so for me, what I say is I have what I call as my God space. I have a time in the morning where we have a cup of coffee together. I try to take away from all like electronics things. And so what I actually have to do, my mind goes crazy. I have this like gray noise sound on my phone that just puts on gray noise that shh. Kids hate it. Everybody hates it except me. But anyway, it puts my mind in a place where I'm not thinking. It's not cluttered about other things. It just kind of clears it up. And so I have some background noise. And I try to listen more than talk. And I read my scriptures in that time. But this is a space that I've created that with a family of 6 people living in one house, you have to be creative. And that's the one thing, too, I think that we can see is that your life and your season of life is unique to you right now. And so the more you can understand how you can apply God's truths to your life so that you might have joy, really the key is abiding with him. Well, you're not going to ever know what he wants from you unless you spend time with him. And so there's a point where you have to settle into and just recognize what that is. Again, from that pilot illustration, that guy had to recognize, if I'm going to survive, I'm going to have to listen to what this air traffic controller says. If I'm going to survive, I'm going to have joy in my life, I'm going to have to hear from God. I don't have the answers. And so this is life or death for me. So I want this time is valuable to me. And this time is important to my soul and important to abiding close to God. And so I really begin to, and again, it took me a while to really work through what it worked for me. My wife could do certain things, but I saw other pastors do other things. I saw other people do other things. But I really found what works for me and helps me really ignite my soul to love Jesus more and to listen to Jesus more. And so this space helps me. And so again, Jesus had a time. He had it early in the morning. And so maybe you're an early morning person, and so you have a time. Maybe you're a late night person. If I do it at night, it's like, I'm just out. Like I can't. By 6 o'clock, I'm ready to. That's my kids say that's because of my age, but at 6 o'clock, I'm ready to. It's hard to read deeply. And so you just have to figure out. And it says, while it was still dark, so Jesus, early in the morning, while it was still dark, got up and left the house and went to a solitary place. And I think there's a place. So where that place for you is, I know one guy, he named his bed the Word, and so he's like, I've been in the Word all day. But that may not be the place. But find a place that really can keep you from distracted. And again, I would highly recommend that you figure out what to do with technology in this space. Like if you're going to land, because technology has a way of driving us away from God's Word and just fills our time. And so there's 1,000 different stories and how it's changing us right before our eyes. And so we have to learn how to handle that distraction. And so he found a place, he found a time and a place. And then I think the simple thing, like this is what we talk about, like a rule of life or is a plan. It's a plan. And so as an apprentice, one of the guys said, he says, you make a plan, so he says, you make a plan, what's the other one? My mind went blank. So you make a plan, then you plan to work the plan. And so the idea is that you make a plan, and then you work the plan. And so then you come to work you come to work the plan, right? You come to work ready to work the plan. And so the idea it really is just creating some space, really allowing God to do it, and then visually, and so I actually had a great visual for you again to show you what that plan looks like for me. And so what I've done for my walk and my rule of life is I've begun to identify the kind of person that I want to be. Like who am I in Christ? And so you may see yourself as a certain way, maybe a child of God. Maybe you see yourself as a loved this. And so my best version for me, and I got this through Matthew chapter 20, verse 26 for me, was I see myself as a servant. And so he says, if you want to be the greatest, be the least. And so there's a heart for me that I want to win. Like I have a winner heart. Like I wanted the Packers to win the Super Bowl and they weren't even in it. Like I want them to win, right? Like that's my heart. Like I just want to win. If I do something, I do it to win. And I think that's the way God wired me. And so I can win at being a servant. And the thing is, it's wide open for me. There's no, I don't have to hit a certain standard to be a servant. I can be the least of the least and serve my way to the heart of the King. And so now I'm just not a servant. I'm a servant of the King. I'm the servant of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I'm a servant of Jesus himself. And so because of that, this identity that God have for me, and so I encourage you to begin to think through, what do you see God as he sees you? He sees me, I'm a loving servant. Now, I have had taskmasters before, and they have ruined and wrecked my life. And I have been the taskmaster for a season, and that was detrimental to my life. But as I surrendered to King Jesus, the great servant, that not only am I a servant, he sees me as a son and an heir to his inheritance. And as a son, I have a place in his kingdom. And so as a servant, I want to hear his word. I want to hear his way. I want to be just like him because he's been so good to me. Just to be called his servant is enough in his kingdom because I have a place. I have a place that's selected for me. And so when I identify myself as that, now how do I live up to that? And so I have some things that I have developed in my own rule of life, or things that some instruments to know, am I on the right track where God has for me? So first, we want to know that there is some disciplines in the Christian life. There's some ways that you will, if you're going to navigate your life and to fly your plane and land it safely, you're going to have to put some sort of discipline, some holy habits of prayer, of community, of maybe some Sabbath rest or some solitary, some things in your life to give you space where you can hear God's voice. So a couple ways to know. I want to be a happy servant. So that's one. So this is a pastor's I use all H's for mine. And so I have happy. So how do I know that I'm on the right track? That I have joy. And so I'll enjoy the journey by living in the now. So this is something I tell myself. I read this often. I was like, I want to be happy now. And sometimes now is not an easy time. Now the projector didn't work, right? Now there's inconvenience in my life, but I want to live in joy in the moment. And so I want to be a happy servant. I want to be a healthy servant. I want to take care of my physical body. I want to be someone that's ready, that I wouldn't have any excuse not to serve the King or be ready to serve him. I want to be an honest servant. I want to be honest to myself and to others around me and be willing to confess my sins one to another. This is the kind of man that I want to be as I follow my King. I want to be handsome. It's like, you can't stop that, right? That actually means being generous in giving, being generous. I want to be a generous person. I want to be a person that shows kindness and generosity. And so as we think this, I have idea of being holy. And so this helps me how to think. Now, again, those are objectives. What I begin to think through is what are some things that lead me to those things, right? So if I want to be healthy, I need to drink water. I need to eat right. I need to watch what I eat, all the sweets and different things, right? And so I have some things that I'm putting into my life and some things I'm taking out of my life so that I might land my plane faithfully. And so we see holiness. And so for me, technology is a big hindrance. And so that's one of the things that I'm really beginning to think through, how to fast on that and how to separate myself from technology in some ways. And so I want to be known as a hardworking servant. I want to take the assignments God gives me with confidence and also accountability. Like, I know when God gives me something to do, I need to take that serious. And so I take my family serious and how I lead my family. I take my work serious, how I handle my job, and how I take people, the people that God's placed in my life. And so really working hard in that. Humor is one. I don't want to take myself too serious. So I take these things serious, but I don't want to, it's not about me. And so learning to laugh at some of the things. So again, part of that, my kids, I got held back in second grade. And so I told part of just to laugh at that, it's a tragic moment, obviously. No one wants to go through that. But what I've done is that when my kids were growing up, I was like, my second grade teacher loved me so much. She's like, Sean, you got to come back and help me lead this class again, right? Like, don't take yourself so serious. You know what? God knew what he needed to do in my life and to slow me down. And so, again, thankful for the people that have cared for me. But again, just enjoying life. I want to be a humble servant. And then really just and that really how I apply that is reflecting praise and giving other people credit for what they did. I'm not a self-made man. There are great people around me that have helped me to be successful. And so I recognize, and number one, God has placed them in my life to be successful. And so, again, hobby, help you find some things that refresh or to encourage or to help me really enjoy that. And that took me a long time as someone that loves work, like really to begin to put things that enjoy and have, like sitting at the family table for dinner, like things like that, just to bring joy to my life. And then there's a hunger, a desire to use not only to land the plane well, but a hunger to finish this course well. That at the end of my life, that somebody, maybe in their own words, would be able to say, you know, man, that guy, he didn't take himself too serious. You know, someone the other day said, man, Sean, you know, he's just a genuine guy. He is who he is. He's nothing fancy. He is who he is. And, you know, those kind of things help us. And so as you think of your life, as you think of your direction, again, there's a lot of information coming at you. And so the key is this. Just imagine now. You're now on that. You're in that plane. You have said yes to Jesus. You're in the plane. And you have somebody that has flown many, many times, and that's the Spirit of God, and he's in you, directing you. And he knows how to land this plane well. And so he is not only your co-pilot, but he's also the one on the ground giving you directions. Jesus knows you, and he cares about you, and he knows what you love. He designed you. He wired you a certain way. And so what part of our job as followers of Christ is to listen to the Master, is to watch the Master, and to imitate what he says to do. And so as we do that, he knows us best. And he says, if you ask anything you wish, if you abide in me. Now listen, if I was in there and that guy was listening to every word that ground control guy was, he was abiding in his words. He's like, push what button? Tell me which one, count the button that you want me to push, right? Like he was very in tune. And so just same thing with your spiritual life. Like we want you to land your plane. We want you to fulfill what God has for you. Do you know that God created you and designed you and gave you life for a specific purpose for him, to bring glory to him and to bless those around you? And wouldn't it be nice that when you came to the end of your life, you're like, you know what? I did it. You know, it's pretty scary. We were upside down a couple times in the plane, you know. And when he called the guy, there was nosediving. He's like, we started out nosediving, but thank God that he preserved, like, look, I mean, I can talk about how God has blessed my life and how God has put people in my life and God has really helped me navigate my plane. Again, I'm still not landed. I still have some work to do. There's still some areas. And so what I want to encourage you is this is a journey. This is a journey. And so wherever you are in your faith journey, maybe you just got in and you realized the pilot's not conscious. And you're like, oh no. Maybe you're thinking, well, how did I get in church? You know, I haven't been in church in a long time, and now he's talking about disciplines and these things. You know what? Let's just take it one day at a time. We want to help you in that. And so there's a couple ways we can do that. Clearly, listen, if you are ready to take your next step, and again, we all have a next step. We all have a faith step that God had. Even this week, that God's put some things in my right before me that I have to take some faith steps. And it makes me really close to the air traffic control guy, right? Like, okay, God, what is this? What do you really want me to do? Because I need some wisdom in these things. So we all have a next step. And so the question is, what is yours? And if you don't know, if you're like, man, I don't know. I've been coming a few weeks. I really know there's something more. Will you just, use that QR code in the back and let us know how we can walk with you in that. And so the beautiful thing too, I think this is where I would tell you, the good news, just like that guy that was on the plane, is the idea of community. God saves you, but if you want to thrive in your Christian life, you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You need people around you. You need people to support you, to pray for you, to encourage you. And I might be bragging and maybe talking about you guys. I think we have a great faith community here. That really want to walk with you where you're at and help you take your next step. And so we want to do that. We want to be in relationship with you. And so wherever you are in your faith journey, and so maybe you're taking some turbulence right now and you just need some encouragement. Maybe you're nosediving and need someone to step in to help you pull the plane up. Or maybe you feel like you're just about to land and you just want to do it the right way. I'm telling you, wherever you are, we want to help you in that journey. And so we're grateful for that. And so this book, this idea of being an apprentice of Jesus really just simplifies it for me. Like, all I really want in my life is I want to be with Jesus. I know where I was when he saved me. He changed my life. I didn't expect to be a preacher. I didn't have any 10-year, 20-year plans. I just was a lost sinner that needed a Savior. And he stepped into that role, and he saved me from my sins. And then as I began to realize who he was, and as he did good, like I read the scriptures, as Peter says, he's like, oh, I've never met, but I know him and I love him. Like, I love him, and I want to become like him. I want to love people like he did. I want to heal people like he did. I want to be a presence. I want to serve those that he served, those that he stepped into. I want to be like him in every way in my life, to my family, to my friends, to my enemies. I want to be like Jesus. And finally, I want to do as he did. I want to spend the rest of my life, however much time I have until my plane lands, that I want to do as he did. And if that's your desire, man, we want to walk with you in that. And so that's all we're asking you to do is take your next step. Help us to help you to do that. There's a couple ways to do that. Again, fill out this QR code, or you can fill out a card and let us know that you're here. And so as we invite the band back up, again, I appreciate their willingness and their patience in all this. But again, we thank you as well. And so as they sing, I think they're going to sing that same song. And really, that's my prayer this morning, is that I'm available. I'm available. I really want to just let the Spirit of God move amongst us this morning. And just, are you available? Are you just willing to let him take control in that? And so as they sing to us, we're grateful for you. If you need some prayer, I'll be in the back, or you need some questions you may have about your next step, we want to help you in that. And so my prayer for you is that you would land your plane with joy and hope and peace and knowing God's there. So God, we thank you. We ask you, God, as we sing to you, we just thank you as we listen, as we hear these words again, God, as we just reflect how good you are. We're grateful for all that you're doing, and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.